Good morning. It's my great pleasure to be here with all of you, and I want to thank the Dalai Lama Center for inviting me. And it's a great pleasure to follow two young people that give us such a bright and hopeful vision of the future. And so I want to share some of my admittedly half-baked thoughts on mindfulness, media, and the Millennial Generation this morning. But before I do that, I wanted to begin with a greeting that is reputed to be from West Africa that I learned from my friend Linda Lantieri. And it's quite simple, but perhaps, like many simple things, profound. And it goes like this, and this greeting exemplifies the main theme of my talk today. So one person, upon meeting another, will say, "I see you." And the other person, upon receiving that, says, "I am here." And then they say, "And I see you." And the first person responds, "And I am here." It's almost as if this greeting, by this greeting, we call each other into existence. Right? So I want us to try it. It's very simple, something that can be portable to any classroom, any subway station, anywhere. So maybe if you could just turn to the neighbors to your left and right and just say, "I see you," and look them in the eye if that feels comfortable to you. And then they can respond, "I am here." And yeah, see what that's like. So thank you so much for playing. I don't know if it's the coffee or the seeing, but a lot of energy in the room there. And what I want to talk a bit about today is how this being seen with, as one of my meditation teachers say, great love and respect is at the heart of human connection. And it's at the heart of human health and development. In fact, we know that in the very first moments of life, what do babies and caregivers want to do but just look into each other's eyes? And it's almost as if in that moment the parents say, "Yes, you've come to the right world. This is where you belong." And so it's very powerful, this seeing. And what I want to talk a bit about today is I believe that this same essential quality of human beings, given our mammalian nature, is there at the heart of social media use as well. This desire to see and be seen. And so, in case it's not clear, I want to tell you what I'm trying to say to you today, right at the beginning. So I want to make 4 points in the short time I have with you. The first is that mindful awareness, this seeing what really is in front of us, is at the heart of human connection. And also that media, radio, television, the book even, has historically transformed our capacity to see and connect with other human beings, for better and for worse. I also want to talk about the youngest generations, what I call the Millennial Generations, and how they're really unique, as we were hearing from Alejandra this morning, in the history of humanity, because the digital technologies that these young people have grown up with actually extends their ability to see and hear way beyond anything that we've seen in the entire history of humankind. And I think there's a great opportunity there, not just a set of risks. I think they're both there. And then finally, I just want to suggest that perhaps cultivating mindfulness and compassion in ourselves and in young people in general, and in relation to our use of media, could help to herald in what I think about as the end of the age of reason and perhaps the dawning of the age of compassion. I, it's true, like Maria, am an optimist. So, mindfulness and human connection. What's the relationship? I wanted to draw on two cultural sources scattered across time and space in human history to really make the point that whatever mindfulness is, it is an essential human quality that thankfully each of us already has. So I want to draw on my favorite poet, Rumi. His birthday was last week, Afghan-born poet, and he had a particular approach to mindfulness that I love. What Rumi said is this that we have now is not imagination. This is not grief or joy or a judging state, not a sadness or an elation. Those come and go, but this is the presence that doesn't. So this that we already have now, this presence is what mindfulness is all about. And in a way, we can understand mindfulness as a relationship, a connection between the blue sky of our own awareness and whatever weathers are passing through it. All right? It's a relationship of sorts. And in a sense, we could understand mindfulness as relational. It's all about connection in a kind way with what Dan Goleman calls the triple focus, connecting to our inner experience with kindness and awareness, connecting with other people with kindness and awareness, and even connecting with the natural and designed worlds with that same quality of awareness. That is, we can bring that quality of awareness to everything, including all of the new technologies that populate our lives. So what is mindfulness? As John Kabat-Zinn says, it's simple but not easy. We need to practice it even though it's a seed within each one of us from the very day we were born. And it is at the present, it is at the heart, rather, this presence of human connection. But I suspect, and many of us sense this, that we may be losing this essential human quality a bit, perhaps in part due to the vicissitudes of the digital age. And I want to say that the science on this, as we heard earlier, is not done. We really don't know that much, and by the time, as Alejandra said, we know, there will be other concerns on the horizon. But the good thing is that we can find out for ourselves what's going on because we have a mind that can see for ourselves. I think this concern shows up most immediately, as evidenced by this conference, around what is the effect of this on our children. And so I just want to say some things that are obvious. For many of us, the pace, the speed and spread of the information age has been amazing and shocking. If we look at the time to reach a market audience of 50 million people, for radio it was 38 years. TV, it was 13 years. The internet, it took 4 years to get 50 million people. iPhone, 3 years. Instagram launches, 2 years. Angry Bird Space, and my mother at 81, 35 days. And so everything is quickening, as you know. And we know since the first televised debate in 1960, when media use was perhaps around 4 to 5 hours a day, that's at least doubled. And as we saw, we're using multiple devices. Many young people have these devices in their bedrooms. They may have smartphones. They're using them in the bathroom. Come on, admit it. A lot of social media use going on in the bathroom. How many of you are sleeping with your iPhones? Let's see a show of hands. Just kidding. So a lot is changing. And we wonder what is the effect. And I do think there are 3 views in the world, and they've been named already, but I'm going to name them again. The eternal optimists. Digital media will unleash human potential in a way that the world has never seen before. Media-driven distraction and inattention is undermining human connection. What is the sound of one hand clapping? The Buddhists ask. The third view, which I want to pursue today, is that media extends the reach of our human senses and social sensibilities and is obviously transforming human connection, perhaps for better and perhaps for worse, both. and that this is the way things are here. And how can we mindfully attend to that and think about it? As my father likes to say to me, son, life is a series of trade-offs. And isn't it true? So I think I just want to name some of the worries that we have first before turning to the opportunity that I see with the millennial generations. One of them is that we worry that virtual relationships, those that are online, may be undermining our actual time with each other. And I would say there's very little science on this, but it is true that time is a finite commodity. And so there is some evidence in families with teens that more media use is associated with less interaction with parents. The picture is not as clear with peers because they often interact around those devices. But we actually don't know if the evidence suggests the quality of those relationships may not be diminishing. So how can we reconcile? It may well be that we're just expanding our repertoire of relationships in this world. I don't think we know yet for sure. But you can figure it out. You don't have to listen to me. Everything is parenthetical to your own experience here. I think we worry that friend has changed from a noun to a verb. I'm going to friend you. And here's the average number of Facebook friends that we have. It's around 500 to 600 for the average adolescent or young adult. For a mammal, that was designed for, I understand, 3 to 5 close friends in actual reality. So what to make of this adolescent Robert Roeser with his 821 supposed Facebook friends, 820 of which he's never met? Is he an impoverished individual? And it might well be that I am, or it might well be that I have pen pals. Remember that? Does anyone remember the word pen pal? All over the world, in Iran, and in Tibet, and in China, I know people that I might never have met before. Or I might just be socially inept. It's not clear, really, at this point, and you can decide. You have your own mind, and you can see me. Do you see me? I see you. All right? I think we worry that we are a culture driven to distraction, and I teach 100 undergraduates every year, and I say to them, you cannot multitask. The brain really wasn't designed for that. And they say, you're full of crap, Roeser. And then all the heads go down and they Google it because they don't need a professor to tell them. They can find out for themselves. But let me just say that they say something like, you don't get it, older person. I can do many things at once. And I say, well, neuroscience and cognitive science suggests that 95% of us can't. The brain was designed for only doing one thing at a time. They say you're full of whatever. And I say, then I really upset them. And I say, it appears that multitasking is actually associated with emotional parts of the brain and a little bit of a high we get from, from novelty. We get a little dopamine, and it's kind of addicting because, in the evolutionary environment, strawberries, an antelope, surprising things were exciting, but it's not, unfortunately, associated with cognitive efficiency. They don't believe me. So it really does appear that our multimedia, our multitasking is associated with emotions that were designed for other purposes, seeking out novelty, and not being left out of the group, which is why you have to respond to that text message even as you barrel down the freeway at 75 miles an hour. This is a real risk, but there's an emotional reason for that. And we have to learn to be mindful of this so that we can decide, is it the little device or my slightly larger brain that's in charge? I have to speed up. Oh my goodness, the time is so finite here. I feel like I should be online. We worry about the blue screen of death versus the sweet dreams, and this is a significant issue for youth, especially if they have devices in their rooms. We know adolescents actually need more, not less sleep than children, but that these devices are causing them to stay up later and get up more tired, and this has a series of potentially negative effects on health, so we should worry about this. We worry about advertising and its effect on moral identities, and I think there's no doubt that the saturation of imagery affects implicitly, if not consciously, our thinking and our consumption. And I think we should worry about this. And then finally, I think we have a song here. We worry that maybe this generation, even as they change the culture around us, might be narcissistic or lack empathy, according to certain older commentators. You know, like this kind of thing, you know. So we worry, is this the selfie generation who's going to let the world go to, you know, whatever? And I said, really? I think the world's already headed that way. This is the generation that's going to help us solve some of these problems. So I think to summarize, I'm not going to summarize because I don't have time. I just want to present a different view of media that comes from Marshall McLuhan. In 1967, he wrote a beautiful book called The Medium is the Massage, not the Message. And he was the one who suggested that what media do is extend our senses, that the wheel was an extension of our foot, that clothing is an extension of our skin, that the book extends our eyes, and so forth. And from this view, do you remember AT&T? Probably not. I'm a little old. But AT&T had this great ad campaign, reach out and touch someone. That media actually extends our capacity for reach, but it needs to be used mindfully. I remember this, the Jetsons. Wow, wouldn't that be awesome to be able to see the person you're talking to on the phone? And now I do it all the time. It's like I'm living in the Jetsons. It's amazing, you know. Whoa, who would have thought? So I think these technologies, as we heard, they have limitations and risks, but they have enormous opportunity in their womb. And we worry. This is a picture from Croatia on a biking trip a few years ago. We had about 12 or 15 young people around the fountain, the boys and the girls, nicely divided as you would expect in early adolescence, all looking down, and you wonder, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And, you know, one of the things we know from the social sciences, it's a contested idea, but one idea is that our development is also envelopment in history and our generation, and the TV shows and the technologies and the events that happen to us. For instance, I'm pretty sure I wasn't there with the advent of the pill in the 1960s. I think that changed human connection. I'm not sure, but I think it changed it somehow. And similarly, the private computer and the digital chip and the 9/11 events has profoundly shaped these younger generations. And so the millennials are really defined as those born on the eve of the millennium or right around the millennium, sometimes called Generation Y and Generation X. You can see an example of them here. I have Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, born in 1984, would exemplify Generation Y, and my beautiful niece, born in 1997, perhaps an example of Generation Z. And these millennial generations are so interesting, as you all know, because they grew up as digital natives, and sometimes they're called the internet generation. And what's so interesting in Canada and the United States and many countries across the world, this generation is huge. It's very large and very ethnically diverse because of the movement of peoples from south to north going on all over the world, even as we speak right now. And they're quite an interesting generation. I have great hope. I'm not of the camp that says that this is the narcissistic generation. I've seen them elect the first African-American president 2 times in the last 8 years in the United States. I've seen marriage equality come to pass in the United States. These are effects of this younger generation, and given their size, their effect on the marketplace and media and the way we do work, all of these things are shifting beneath our feet right now. And we can see that with mindful awareness and see what is good there and what is challenging. We don't have to, it's all great, it's all bad. This is my Abby, my niece. This is the first generation. I say this. They've never lived in a time before Google. So it's true. Every time I say something in class, I said, "Oh, I'm piloerecting once." I have goosebumps. Piloerecting? 100 heads go down, they fact check me. And so they have a totally different relationship to knowledge and information than we did. This is her beautiful rat tricks video. It had 1.5 million views. Can you imagine in the history of the planet of a 17-year-old being able to reach 1.5 million people? What an opportunity. What a risk. She was solicited in probably negative ways. She was asked to be on Jimmy Kimmel. All sorts of good things came out of that, and some worrisome things that her parents had to monitor. And the last thing I'll say, because I have to come to my conclusion soon, is that millennials, as I said earlier, across the developing world are actually quite similar in that they grew up in this era of seeing and hearing everywhere instantly. They know something about each other across the entire planet. What an opportunity to see each other, whether in Iran or Syria or Russia or the United States or Canada, seeing each other. What a possibility for education and parenting and the prospects for one world. I don't know why that did that. So let me try to put all this together. And I keep showing you, by the way, this picture from the moon landing because that one image changed the way human beings thought about themselves. One planet, Earth Day, one people. We saw ourselves in a new way based on that extraordinary technology and courage that brought human beings to the moon. Could it be happening now in a similar way? I don't know. But here's what I'm thinking. I think that this cultivation of mindfulness in millennials is a real opportunity for a couple reasons. As I said, these young people have always had almost a direct access to information and truth, if not truthiness. And that's all they've ever known. And what's so beautiful about mindfulness is it's an ancient technology that says, I don't know, you discover what is true. You discover what is going on for yourself. As the Buddha was reputed to say, ehipasa, come and see for yourself. Don't believe me. And so I think that mindfulness is an ancient technology that fits with the way of knowing that this generation has experienced for their whole lives. And in a sense, rather than thinking about how we can adapt technologies to extend human sensibilities, I think we live in a time where we need to draw on some of these ancient technologies in order to cope and really benefit in the most effective way from our new technologies. All right? We almost have to flip it, given the pace of information change. As T.S. Eliot said, where is the wisdom that's lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge that's lost in information? That the only way to cope with the amount of information we have is actually, paradoxically, to slow down and pause, even if it's just for 3 breaths, before we die again on the slopes of the virtual reality game. And so I'm a big fan of educating the heart, mind, and all that's going on in Vancouver and really all across the world, of trying to cultivate this intrinsic quality, this that we have now, that's not imagination. I'm really a big fan of this, and I think it can help us to learn how to focus on inner, outer, and other with kindness. I think we have some preliminary data, much of which is from Kim Schonert-Reichel here in Canada, but in other places, that this can help young people learn how to focus. I think these techniques can help us to learn how to host whatever is happening in the blue sky of our mind without being carried away by the weathers. Ping, text. And I think it can help us to reacquaint ourselves with that nice old friend, silence. Silence. So beautiful. So beautiful. I think mindfulness also has perhaps a few other benefits. it may help us to accept our own friend request so that we're not constantly seeking affirmation and approval from other people, but that we are quite comfortable in our own being. I think mindfulness may, and compassion as its logical twin, help us to move from a like me mentality to a just like me, also wants to be happy and free from suffering. That's what I see in my Facebook friends in Iran. Just like me. That's what I see in the Syrian refugees, perhaps with a little digital mentoring from a wise adult. Look at those people, wanting to be happy, just like me, wanting not to suffer, just like me. We can see that everywhere now, in every moment, every human being that we see, every YouTube video that we watch. If we just look mindfully, we see this common aspiration, these commonalities despite the beautiful differences that define the global family. And so, in conclusion, I want to say that I don't think we know how it all turns out. And being mindfully present to that reality is where we are. Yet, I think that this idea of digital mentoring, of bringing our wisdom in how to be a human family, how to relate to each other, helping young people bring that to their virtual lives and their actual lives, helping them to see the big picture, even as they watch the little screens, is our charge and could be very helpful. I think we want to help young people see that the world is interconnected inextricably, that there is inequality everywhere, and that is a abomination in a family. That some have so much and others have nothing. And that the world is warming. I think we can see that now. We don't have to argue about it. We can see it. And now is the time to move to action and to practice what I think millennials who grew up in the shadow of 9/11 and a world broken already sense in their own hearts, that the world is in need of repair, that something is profoundly wrong on that beautiful blue marble today. And what can we do about that? And it's my view, and perhaps I'm Pollyannish, and time will only tell, that if we did that, if we mentor each other and are open to new technologies and walk together into this new era, perhaps we will see the sun setting on the age of reason, which has brought us so much knowledge, but not as nearly as much wisdom as we wished. Perhaps we will see the dawning of a new age in which we really do say, I see you, I care about you, I understand that we're in this together. So thank you very much.